and welcome back to Beating a Dead Horse. As always, I'm your host, Sean McKinda.
And I'm your host, Jackson Keller.
And, just about a year ago, we released our first episode of Beating a Dead Horse to the public, to our innumerous fans. There are dozens of you. Dozens!
Dozens! Get the party poppers, everyone! Cut the cake, it's our birthday!
So yeah, we've been doing this for about a year now. We obviously had a couple episodes we missed, but you know what? Who cares? It's still been a full year of podcasting and just talking about movies, and I like to think that we've gotten better. And you know what? We have gotten better. I'm gonna say it flat out. We've gotten better at this jit. I just said jit. That's not a word. You know what? There's really underscoring that.
I was gonna say, have we gotten better, Sean? Have we?
So yeah, we're gonna, before we dive into the Purge, the first Purge, and the first Purge.
I can't believe this is how we're spending our first birthday.
I know.
I don't think I would have suggested this if I had realized that was the case.
There are so many other things, better things we want to talk about, and yet here we are.
We could have saved, Inception or The Iron Giant or, another one of our favorites for now. And it's like, oh, I've got a great idea. Let's talk about the fucking Purge. That'll be spectacular.
So we're going to do a little bit of a Q&A. I posted it on Twitter, being like, hey, if you guys have questions for us, fire it our way. We also have had a couple questions that got floated around every now and again. We're just going to touch on that a little bit. And I'm going to open with the most pressing one that we have covered in the past, but if you haven't listened to that episode or anything like that, you might not know as to why we hate children.
Because they're annoying and unnecessary. Next.
Here's the question though. Are we specifying movie children or just in general?
Both.
All right, cool. Because the next question is, what's our best hot take? And I think we just answered that.
Should I explain myself? Should I try to defend myself, or should I just let it be?
It's your call.
You know what? I guess I will. I guess I will defend myself. So I don't hate children, at least not on principle. I hate children in movies that are used only as a prop and not as a character, because that is something that feels very fake to me, because children are just little people. And when
not wrong,
but I feel like writers use children the same way they use dogs, which is just we're gonna have this maybe cute thing and to be sympathetic, and then we're gonna tug at your heartstrings when the child gets sick or it does something stupid, but it's cute, so it's fine. And they never give it a coherent character. No, interiority. I love plenty of movies where children are the main characters. I like lots of animated films. Those pretty much all star children, at least a lot of Western animated films. I like Moonrise Kingdom. That's a great movie that stars kids. And you just gotta write them like a character. Flesh them out, make them like a person, so they're not just an annoying trope to get killed off or dangled over our heads the whole movie.
Yeah, I mean, movies are pretty much all about emotional manipulation. That is the idea of a movie, a book, any sort of story or whatnot. You're trying to elicit an emotion from your audience, but just using children purely for that really undermines what they could be doing otherwise. This all kind of originates from A Quiet Place. I'm not going to really get too much into that, but basically, the kids, for the most part, just end up being plot contrivances, and they are there more so as a quick way to tug at those heartstrings, as opposed to a well thought out way to tug at the heartstrings.
Or to even use an example from a movie that I like Aliens, but Newt is totally just there to make Ripley's character seem to have more dimension. She's a non-factor on herself. She's just there to be a MacGuffin. And basically, it's a good thing you bring up movies being inherently emotional manipulation, because I totally agree with that. But here's my litmus test for children in movies. Could you have gotten the job done just as well using a dog? Could you make a sad for the cute thing by just using a dog and then not wasting like a human character? If the answer is yes, either remove the scene entirely, or if you really want it, just make a sad dog. People are gonna remember the sad dog more than the sad child anyway. I know I will. And yes, fine, I will say it outright. I do prefer dogs to children, so you got me there. But
I mean, there's a reason I have a dog, so...
Dogs are great! There should be more of them in movies! But, yeah, so, no, I don't hate kids. I don't hate kids in movies on principle. Just the execution of a lot of movie kids. We're the Death Cast! Yeah, the execution is lacking a lot of the time, in my humble estimation.
All right, well, let's move on to the next one, and this is, I feel like, going to kind of combine into a couple of these questions, which is, what's our favorite hot take on the podcast? That's coming at us from Sam, at Sam Grievous is Sad on Twitter. So if you want to get mentioned, you got to add us. We'll talk about you on the podcast.
Get mentioned on the show, get that sweet audience interaction. We'll be your friends. We'll be your new internet friends. So I'm just going to go with the hot take that I'm proudest of, which is from our very first pilot episode, actually. I have, to this day, had multiple people walk up to me or message me telling me that my argument was so convincing that they had agreed with me and thought that Civil War would be a much better movie. I am, of course, I've had quite a few. You'd be surprised. But my hot take back then, in case you didn't watch the episode, you should. It's great. Was that Iron Man should have killed Bucky at the end of Civil War. Partly to give some real drama and stakes to the proceedings, but mostly because Bucky Barnes is lame and he's forgettable, and they really wasted a potentially interesting plotline on his dull, uncharismatic self. If you want the full argument, go listen to that episode, but that's the gist of it.
Yeah, no, that's definitely one of my favorite episodes, and I will admit, you pretty much convinced me in that episode as well that I do pretty much agree with you in that regard. I think probably my hottest take, and I'm not sure if I actually really specified this in the episode, but the more I've kind of marinated on it, I think it's that Blade Runner 2049 is better than the original. I thought 2049, and there's a lot of layers to that sentence. The original Blade Runner is really good. There's just a lot of elements to it that are, as the kids say, #problematic, that I think kind of undermine it in a lot of ways and make it a little bit more uncomfortable to watch as a movie in modern times. I think the new one managed to strike the essence of Blade Runner in a very nice way and expound upon the universe without really stepping on toes, as well as kind of present a lot of new interesting dilemmas without really feeling overtly problematic. There's a scene in the first one that's just really uncomfortable to watch, where Harrison Ford basically forces himself upon a woman, and it's the point of the scene is choice and whatnot, but it's just hard to watch. So I think 2049 is a better movie.
Yeah, I don't remember if you mentioned that in the original podcast, and I'm still not sure where I sit on that. I might agree with you. I'm not sure. I'd have to go back and watch them both again, probably.
I know that our biggest hot take is one that we've both been called out for, though. One that we also are going to discuss because it was another question that we got repeatedly. Is Hurricane Heist actually worse than the Star Wars Christmas special?
So this is a good question. I'm glad that people called us on this, because I didn't really think about it.
Looking at you, Desi.
I didn't really think about it that much until I went back and re-listened to that Hurricane Heist episode when I said it. And I was like, oh, well, when I said this, I had forgotten that we had talked about the holiday special on this show. And while I admit, like I'm not just saying that, like, oh, I was right all along, here's my hot take. I admit that I forgot that we had talked about it, legitimately. However, I think that I'm still going to stand by that statement. Just because both movies are excruciating to sit through. There are only 3 films that we've talked about on this podcast, and we're talking about number 3 today. But there are only 3 films on this podcast that I legitimately did not think that I would be able to sit through for the purposes of talking about it. One of them was the Hurricane Heist. One of them was the holiday special. And the holiday special was a little easier because I was subjecting someone else to it. But the thing is that the holiday special is better by default just because it is more memorable. Even after one watch of the Star Wars holiday special, there will be things in it exactly, stir whip. That musical number with B. Arthur, just the first 20 minutes of them shouting in Wookiee, that terrible looking animated segment. There's
Grandpa
just
jerking off to porn.
Grandpa jerking off to porn alone. And while the actual experience of watching the Star Wars holiday special is pain, it is one that you are never going to forget.
It's such a unique pain is really what it boils down to.
Yes. Whereas the Hurricane Heist, if we didn't do this show, I would have forgotten that I had seen the Hurricane Heist already.
The only thing I will remember from the Hurricane Heist is that hubcap throw, because it's fucking stellar.
Yeah, no, it's... The hubcap throw is the only real memorable moment, because although there were other funny moments, I didn't even remember them until I went back and listened to us talking about it again. Like, did you remember that the older brother's name was Breeze? I didn't.
Oh my god, no, I totally forgot about that. Jesus Christ. Oh no, that movie's really bad.
So, I see everyone's point on calling us out by saying the Star Wars holiday special is worse. And I think you can make that case, but I personally disagree.
Yeah, I'm with Jackson on this one. I think the Star Wars holiday special, despite probably being a worse film, is at least more interesting as like a case study. Hurricane Heist is just another movie, and it's gonna get forgotten in the annals of time, but the Star Wars holiday special is it's forever. It's forever.
It's legendary. George Lucas has said that he wanted to smash every copy with a hammer, and that just makes everyone want to watch it more. It's got a whole culture around it. It's not like The Room, where you can watch it and have an enjoyable time despite like the culture around it. It's basically only good for the memes, but it's good for the memes, which is more I could say than the Hurricane Heist.
Yeah. And I'm going to kind of combine the last two from Patrick P. Casgrove31 on Twitter and Mike Rarebird13 on Twitter, because they ask very similar things, which is what led to focus on death on movies, and how long did it take for us to get going? Like, what did the first episode really look like? And I'm going to kind of talk about where the idea of the podcast came from, because before we had even recorded our first episode, we released our first episode in July. October of the previous year, I had watched Stranger Things with my girlfriend, Sam, who we finished it and basically then argued about the point of one of the characters' deaths and whether we thought it was worth it or not. And that had been a long-running argument for a while now. I know there was a superhero... Yeah, Age of Ultron somebody died in, and I'm pretty sure you, me, and her had all watched that movie together or shortly after each other, and we argued about that for a little while too. So we've had a history of arguing about character deaths in movies, just the group that we hung out with in college. And so when it came time to do a podcast, I'm like, I want to do this. I would want to do it with Jackson. I trust him well enough with movies and whatnot that I think we have a good conversation about things. And everyone has that movie podcast. Like, there's a swath of movie podcasts out there, and we try to find an angle that would make ourselves a little bit different. We're like, we do talk about death all of the time, like, as far as just character deaths go. Why not, like, focus on that as much as we possibly can within the movie, or within the podcast? So, we've wrapped it into themes in a lot of movies. And, it's been pointed out, like, we've had episodes where we really don't talk about death at all, but, like, that was just the movie that we happened to watch that week. Sorry, but we'll try and tie at least something into it at some point.
It's funny because whenever I tell people about the show, I get people look kind of mortified sometimes that, like, this is the subject, and they're like, oh, like, how morbid, like, why would you choose something like that? And maybe this reveals that I'm just, like, a cold psychopath at my core, but I don't see the subject of death in movies as being that, like, gruesome or depressing, because to me, the fact that we're talking about death means we're just talking about another, like, tool in terms of narrative construction, like who dies and when and why and all that good stuff, who lived, who died, who deserved to die. To me, those questions, like, get to the core of what a movie's trying to convey. Like, having like a simple superhero story, a choice whether or not, as simple as whether the hero kills the villain, can, like, spark endless debates and get people really thinking critically about kind of the role that these conceptions... Man of Steel. It's such a good go-to example for this stuff. But, even beyond Man of Steel, just, like, what character deaths made us sad, what character deaths were funny, like, there was one in Coco, and, like, near the beginning that had me laughing, and, like, what about that makes it work in the context of this whole thing, and
even, like, structure of it. Like, I was gonna reference Coco too, just because, like, death in that movie plays into the structure in a very organic way, in a very interesting way.
Yeah, and so if you'll allow me to take a hit from this huge blunt here, man, and get all philosophical on you, because death is just the other side of the coin, man. It's just talking about life, and that's why we do it.
Yeah, I mean, it really is. Like, the death that we discuss in here is almost kind of a celebration of life on the other side, as weird as it is. It's not meant to be just dark and gloomy. It's meant to be kind of positive. Like, hey, look, this person died, but here's what good it did for the movie, or whatever. So I think it's a lot more positive than it sounds when you first hear about it. As far as the other part of the question, which is how long was it in the works for? How much planning did we do before the first episode? I think we should talk about our true first episode, the one that probably will never see the light of day to the general public.
I think if I went back and listened to that episode now, I would want to, like, bury myself in a ditch just based on my speaking patterns and all that stuff. Yeah.
Well, let me put it this way. We'll tease it a little bit. If you guys maybe want to hear it at some point, like, we got to get more people listening to the podcast. If you get what I'm saying here, we're gonna hold this episode hostage.
Grease our palms a little bit, just
yeah. You spread the word. Let's get a noticeable uptick in downloads. Just tell a friend. That's all you gotta do. Just tell a friend,
so you can listen to our trash episode.
So yeah, our first episode is trash, and it's about a trash movie. We initially were going to do an episode about a Star Wars story, Rogue One. And I just for a second there I panicked because I thought I mixed up Rogue One and Solo, because like essentially Rogue One and Solo are synonyms.
Oh wow. Oh no, they are.
Yeah, that was a weird realization there. But we had a bunch of ideas behind it, and like it didn't actually take us that long for like our first episode to get prepared for. I think we did a little bit more preparation for that episode just because we had some other ideas that fell through just because we didn't feel it was necessarily worth it. Like I took a tally of everyone who died in that movie to try and keep a running track of it, which that fell through, and thank God. That was tedious and uninteresting and did not help the movie watching experience.
But you gotta try stuff like that. Like that's the point of having your trial run, kind of our real pilot, I guess, in the traditional sense of the word. Because then I think we recorded a lot of those first episodes in like a big batch, if I recall correctly, like those first 2 or 3.
Yeah. We released 4 episodes within 5 days for that first week.
Yeah, we wanted to come out swinging, and I think, like, so in terms of preparation, like, that was just the biggest thing, like, taking that first trial run and, like, listening back to it and realizing, okay, this isn't really all that good, here's everything that we could be doing better, and then using that time to build up our portfolio until like the first one we have listed, the Captain America one, was of that batch. I think the last one we recorded, and I mean, I think it, like, if you go and listen to those early episodes, I think that the work speaks for itself just because the discussion that came out of that one was so much better because we had time to practice. So yeah, I guess that's my advice for aspiring creative people of any kind who want to embark on any endeavor, be it a podcast. Don't release your first attempt.
Yeah, it'll probably suck, but like don't let that discourage you either, because like as I said, we have maybe dozens of fans, but like I love doing this anyway, and it's a lot of fun, and I honestly think like we have really good content. I'm not ashamed of anything we're putting out. Like I'm ashamed of that first one, but like don't let that stop you. Just keep plowing ahead, and I mean I guarantee we've had some less great episodes. Not bad episodes, mind you. Every episode is a gem in some way.
I mean, can we just say that like of all the episodes, like so far, aside from that first one, there's only been one other that we didn't want to release just because we didn't think it was up to like standards.
Yeah, that's a good point. We've had one that we recorded and didn't release.
And I mean that that episode doesn't really matter. It was just one of the like smaller ones, but I think that just shows that we are dedicated to maintaining a certain standard of trying to give you guys something entertaining, something thoughtful to listen to, and not just putting out whatever trash just because we need something that week. We're gonna actually consider and make sure that it adds something to the conversation, or at least is a hoot and holler to listen to, if nothing else.
Right, and I mean, that one we don't have anymore. That episode is gone. It is dead. Don't worry about that one. It's gone. But like we absolutely are constantly striving to do the best we can. I do a lot of editing on the backside of these podcasts that like you just don't really see, and that's the idea behind it. So like we're doing our best to put out a quality product, and we hope that you've enjoyed the past year of our at least somewhat quality product.
Yes, and to everyone who has been listening regularly, thank you, really do appreciate it. It's seriously always cool whenever you guys tweet at me, tweet at the account, like the bigger account, just like Sean shares what you guys have been saying. It's always just really cool when you guys are coming up with good comments and just appreciating what we do. And Thanks, guys. You're great.
Yeah, we love hearing from you guys. It's great. You guys have all been really, really cool about everything. We love getting like suggestions for movies and whatnot. Like somebody recommended to us Santa Claus Conquers the Martians. That was Chris CR Star Jr. on Twitter, I believe, who suggested that one, and like that'll be great because like Christmas movies are really hard to come by as far as death goes, unless we want to talk about Frosty and how he dies and is reborn again and again, which, let's be honest, might be a great episode. But like Santa Claus Conquers the Martians would be really cool to talk about. So we'll keep going from here, and as I said, please, just spread the word. We want to keep doing more of this. And, like, the more we grow, the more we can do. So, like, leave us reviews on iTunes. Talk to your friends. Retweet the links to tell new people. If you see one of us in public, we both have business cards. If you want a couple of those, I guess you can have some. So, yeah. You want to talk about The Purge?
I mean, not especially, but I guess it's what we're here to do, isn't it?
It is. This was the original intent, was to talk about,
and it was my idea. Was the worst part. Like this is a doomsday device of my own making.
Yeah, you are the only person to blame for this. So we watched both the first Purge and the first Purge. They were both bad. They were bad for very different reasons, but they were both bad.
The first Purge was definitely worse than the first Purge, I would say.
Yeah, no, for sure. I feel like the first Purge really kind of expounded on a lot of ideas that the first Purge had and made them a little bit better. Like, it had better actors. The characters are all still really flat, but, like, there was at least some interesting things happening there. The first Purge was just terribly done. It was boring, uninteresting, fell into every trope possible. It was rough.
Yeah, the first Purge was one of the three movies that I almost could not get through. There were like two different points in the movie where I just wanted to shut it off and like play a video game until it was time to record and pretend like I watched to the end. But I did watch to the end. I did watch to the end, kind of. I was looking at my phone for that last like 15 minutes, but I get the point. It sucked. The first Purge, the prequel that's out now in theaters, was much more entertaining. But honestly, you're probably just best served watching the Rick and Morty Purge episode because it's only like 20 minutes, and you get the basic idea from that.
Oh yeah, you get the whole idea from that. Like,
yeah.
You understand the Purge universe. They summarize it way, way better, and like, I realize that you have to be really intelligent to watch Rick and Morty, but like...
maybe might fly over the heads of you peons in the audience.
I mean, it is like a 200 IQ show. Let's all be honest here for a minute. But yeah, no, like the Rick and Morty Purge episode, you'll get everything you need out of the series from just that.
You know what? Before we dive, I guess, into our discussion, I will say that, like, if you're... See, I can't even recommend it to high schoolers because it's fucking rated R.
That's... All right, before we get into the discussion, I want to talk about that. Why are these rated R?
I mean, I appreciate it, but also why? Also, that's just, like... Because literally, like, I was thinking, like, while I was watching the first Purge in the theater... I was thinking, like, if I was, like, a 16-year-old and, like, was, like, just going to see this with, like, a group of rowdy friends or, like, maybe out on a date or something, like, this is a fine, like, sleazy teenage action horror movie. But then it's rated R, so I wouldn't have been able to watch it as a high schooler without, like, sneaking into the theater, and then... Now that I'm older, it's just dumb.
I mean, even beyond just like the idea of, who it's marketed for and everything. Like I'm gonna try and break this because it is actually, joking aside, really hard to differentiate between the first Purge and the first Purge. The original Purge was like, I was watching it and I'm like, this is rated R. There are no nudity. The blood and gore doesn't feel anything beyond a PG-13 movie, and I don't think they ever say the fuck word. So...
True. No, you're right. I do think that the first Purge, the prequel, earns that R rating a little more, which I definitely appreciate.
Just by swearing, though. Like, that's not a hard thing to change.
it was a little, like, the gore looked bad, but it was a little gorier. And also there was that, there was that couple fucking on the car.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that. That appears for half a second, and the only thing you get out of it is some man ass. So, like,
probably
man ass is PG-13, isn't it?
I mean, I don't know.
Maybe explicit references to coitus are considered R rating or whatever. I don't know. It's dumb. It's weird. Let's talk about The Purge.
I was gonna say spoilers. Okay, so before we go into spoilers, I guess, like, who keeps watching these movies? They're somehow, like, still culturally relevant. Like, everyone knows the fucking Purge. It's like a thing you can say and people get what it is. But, like, I don't know anyone who watches the fucking Purge movies. My girlfriend watches a bunch of horror movies, and she had never seen any of them. So who's going to these? Why are there four of them?
I have and a TV show.
There's a TV show? I didn't even know there was a TV show.
Oh, you didn't stay? I was, texting or something after the theater, like, just kind of processing thoughts, and I was sitting in there, and there was a trailer for the TV show at the end of the first Purge.
Oh, no, we just bounced. We were like, we're done. Like, bye.
Yeah, I would have too, except, like I said, I think I texted you about
how
bad the CG looks in that. And so, like, I was just chilling in my chair for a couple minutes and be like, all right, yeah, whatever, I'm not in any rush. And then I look up and, like, there's a trailer played. I'm like, wait, excuse me? So you have 4 movies and a TV series? All right.
Well, great.
Let's talk. Let's dish about the Purge, the original Purge first, and we'll get into the first Purge later. And I guarantee we'll overlap, so we're going to call it a general spoiler, but we're going to try and talk about the original first. God, whoever named this the first Purge needs to be stopped.
It's like the Xbox One.
It is. It's so bad.
Or like Two Worlds 2. Guys, don't put numbers in your titles. Don't do it.
It's bad. Unless it's a direct sequel, don't do it.
Don't do it. Or it's the kind of thing, like, that you know is never gonna get, like, a sequel, like a historical biopic or something, like the 23rd Platoon or whatever.
Yeah, like, I'm not gonna be like, where's the first 22 in the series? What am I missing?
Yeah.
The answer is World War One. I mean, if you got World War Two. All right. Let's fucking get on this, because this is absurd. The original Purge sucks worse than the first Purge. It's boring. It's bad. It's uninteresting. It is played out as it can possibly be. The social commentary in it, like, the framework is set up there, but, like, it's really bad. And my biggest complaint about it, before I pass it off to Jackson, is it's shot like an episode of The Office. And if you've seen The Office, you're gonna know what I'm talking about, because it's shot like zoom-ins and outs of faces, and, like, it looks like there's a camera crew following the people and whatnot. Like, it's a constant reminder that there's a camera crew in The Office, and, like, it's supposed to be a documentary. This feels like that, except it's not supposed to be a documentary, it's supposed to be a fucking movie. So I don't fucking know what that was.
You know, there's a couple shots of Ethan Hawke and running around with his gun, and the wife, she's running around with a gun, and, like, it zooms in on their face, and they're just, like, running in place. It looks like stock footage, and that's the shot when you said that where I'm like, oh no, he's right. Oh god. Fucking terrible. It's completely boring, stupid, dumb, terrible acting, completely predictable. The moment that the actual Purge starts, you can guess every single beat that the movie is going to go through, and it does it.
The kid looks like Tommy Wiseau, though, so I mean, that's something.
The kid looks like Tommy Wiseau, and I really got a gripe about this, because, so, the main kid has this tiny creepy looking baby that looks like Sid's spider toy from Toy Story.
Yeah, it's a baby doll with half its face burned off, glued to a remote control tank.
Yeah, so he's guiding the tank around, and he uses these glasses that, again, make him look like Tommy Wiseau, but also, like, since it's like a HUD, he can, like, look through the mini tank through him. He's also kind of like the detective from Heavy Rain, Nam and Jaden. Which is pretty great. And so we see the introduction to his character is that he's following his mom around the kitchen and trying to spook her with the tank. And, like, you see that it's this disgusting baby burn thing. And you think that it's maybe setting up
kids.
No, exactly. I didn't mind this kid that much, actually.
No, I didn't either.
But it's setting him up to, like, he's following his mom around. So you think it's gonna be like he's gonna be like the creepy kid, like Charlie from Hereditary, or, like, whatever, like, horror movie creepy kids. But then he's just, like, a sweet boy. Like he's kind of the moral center of the movie. So, like, why does he have this scary looking terrible baby doll tank? Why does it look like that? And why does it go uncommented on? And
I think they're trying to do something like Hereditary. Like, you mentioned Charlie, where, like, they set up Charlie to be, and once again, I'm trying not to spoil Hereditary. I think I won't, but, like, they set up Charlie to be the creepy kid, and, like, they kind of twist that on its head. I think they're trying to do something with that here too, because, like, he is kind of a creepy looking kid. He's got, like, the creepy baby doll, and, like, there's this whole scene where he's like, I need to take my pills now, or otherwise, and like, you're expecting, like, all right, at some point he's not gonna take his pills, and, like, he's gonna go ape, and he's gonna purge his parents or something like that.
He's gonna be Morty in the Rick and Morty episode.
Exactly, something like that. And instead, it's just like I feel like they're trying to subvert expectations with this kid, but you promptly forget that there's any expectations at all.
Yeah, because he just jumps immediately into being like, oh, like, Daddy, I don't know about this purge. Like, is it moral or not? Like, it's a complete waste of time. And then it's also pretty funny how when he lets the homeless guy into the house, and that's sort of the inciting incident, how he's trying to, like, keep him safe, and he uses the creepy baby doll's headlights to, like, try and guide him to his secret safe room. And I like how the guy just follows it, like, even though it's this hideous monster thing on a tank. And
he used Morse code to talk to him. Yeah. So, like, obviously, this creepy baby doll head thing that knows Morse code is safe.
If I get into communication with a creepy baby spider tank, and it starts Morse coding at me, the first thing I'm going to do is take its every word at face value.
I mean, obviously, what else?
In no way could this be a trap leading to my untimely demise. And so, speaking of the homeless guy, this movie, because this is the same writer on both movies, and I feel like we're going to get
all four.
All four of them. And
he directed the first three too. Like, this is the first Purge is the one movie where it changed.
I did not know that. I knew he directed the first one, but I didn't look into the other two that much. We haven't watched the second or third one.
We're not going to. Don't worry.
Yeah, fuck that shit. But this guy, just based on these two movies, this movie feels like it was written by one of the old white people from Get Out. In that it's trying very hard to be politically conscious and, like, cool and good, but it just
I would have voted for Obama for the third term.
Yeah, well, and so, like my immediate reaction, like, I like tensed up and was like, oh no, when because he lets the he lets the homeless guy in, and the homeless guy is black, and so it seems like for a minute, like, that's gonna be where everything goes wrong, like, because he let this guy in, and they're trying to do a subversion of expectations, like, oh, like of course you thought it would, like, this character was gonna be the criminal, but, like, a lot of the shots in the early parts are playing up that, like, trying to play him up as like this like scary imposing force, and it's just skeevy. It's just skeevy and bad. And then he turns out to not be a character at all, who like comes to the family's rescue at the end, even though like they stabbed him with a letter opener and tied him up and like did a bunch of really dehumanizing shit to him. And
especially because as us seeing only these two movies, the idea constantly flowing through the first Purge is that, you know, they're purging the lower classes, the minorities and whatnot, those who don't have the wealth to sustain themselves and whatnot. And like in that movie, it's all minorities. In this movie, they're trying to purge the lower class. Once again, all minorities. You got something to say there?
Yeah, and so like, because the problem is that these movies, you know, I brought up Get Out. Like, that's a movie that, you know, and we'll talk more about this when we get to the prequel movie, but, like, I feel like that's a decent point of comparison, because they're both kind of, like, socially conscious, horror thrillers that try to juggle a lot of tones. And Get Out is, like, a masterpiece, and the first Purge is schlock trash. And, like, so what ends up happening just in both of these movies is that all of, like, on the script level, like, everything they're saying is about class. And they don't really engage with, like, the unique problems of, like, race in America and, like, how that sort of intersects and is dependent and independent of class. They just make that one-to-one connection of, like, people of color and the lower class are the same. And it's pretty gross, actually. That
it's a kind of an oversimplification that just doesn't play super well.
Yeah, and in the prequel, like, it's the prequel is an interesting case because the writer is the same guy, but the director was black. So there's a bit of a like push and pull there, where like a lot of the script is kind of like thuddingly obvious and brain dead, and again like just written by someone who's kind of clueless, whereas like the directing, you can see kind of that tension there, or at least like it made sense to me like after I went and like researched the movie. So yeah, if you like socially conscious movies, don't expect anything out of either of these that beyond just the basic lip service of the people in power are gonna do mean stuff to the people who aren't in power, and it's all a scheme against the little man. And in case you think they're gonna make that point through any sort of drama or staging, they won't. They'll just say it again and again and again.
Practically doing a Jim from The Office look into the camera and smile and explain the plot. Is there anything else we really want to talk about with the original Purge? Like, is there any other final points before we want to move on to the first Purge? Because, like, I feel like there's a lot to be said around it, but it ends up getting a little bit more just like, this movie sucks.
Yeah. I mean, it's just so flat and uninteresting and predictable for the most part. And so in a lot of ways, I kind of wish, because I watched this out of order. I watched the prequel, then I watched the original. I wish that I had watched them in order, because I feel like I would have appreciated the ways that the prequel improved in a lot of ways. Just because it is an improvement in terms of tone, in terms of style.
In terms of fucking director, oh my god.
Yeah. But it's definitely like the script is the problem here in both cases. The scripts are very, very bad.
Yeah, there's no, as Jackson was saying, like, there's no nuance to any of the themes, any of the ideas in it. It's just, it's exposited upon it. And let's dive into the first Purge a little bit then with this, because like, this was my, like, you know, I had a little bit of hope for the first Purge, actually, because the first one, the original, sucked. And movie Bob Chipman really liked it and was like, all right, the themes work a lot better. I should preface that he didn't really like it. He said that, like, the themes come out better, it's better done and whatnot, but it's still got a lot of problems behind it. So I was a little bit more ready for it. I'm like, all right, cool, maybe like they'll actually do something with these themes and ideas as opposed to just reading them. And they don't. Like, there's at one point where the head of the experiment, Marissa Tomei, she's like finds out that her experiment's being used, and like they're sending in the police and the corrupt police and mercenaries and the Klan, spelled with a K, I should say, and like they just say it to the camera, and that's the only place that we really feel the theme, and it's not, you don't feel it, you hear it. There's never any build up to it. Like, you don't see that in the lives of the other three characters who are all African American. Or even, like, there's a couple of Latinx characters within it. And you don't get any of those, you don't see those themes exposed to them. They just, like, sure, they get attacked by the Klan, but, like, that's not really the theme. That's just, like, a thing in the movie. So, like, there's never any microaggression. There's never any build up to the reveal. There's never any, room for discussion or nuance in the theme. It's just, this is it. Don't think too much about it. It's this. We got it for you. Here it is. Don't worry.
It's like, so I don't want to spoil Get Out in case people hadn't seen it, but like, because it's such a perfect counterexample. Whatever. I'm going to do it just because it's perfect. Spoilers for Get Out. So at the end of Get Out, there was a really great moment where after the big sort of climax, you see a police car pull up, and if you have even like a shred of social consciousness, like, this is so clearly a bad move, like a bad thing about to happen.
Fucking drops.
Yeah, it's like the most tense thing in the movie, and then it gets kind of flipped, and it's sort of clever because it turns out to be the friend. So that's the sort of thing. Like, and all throughout the beginning of that movie, like, is really building up on that sort of experience until all that tension gets kind of released in that moment. And here, like, really, the fact that it has this kind of social commentary doesn't really make the movie any substantially different from the first one. Like, if you look at what the actual themes are, it's all just like general platitudes of, oh, people are angry at society and want to lash out, and with Purge will help them, and could, look at man's inhumanity in a man. I fucking hate that trope. This bothered me when we were talking about zombie movies and how, like, every single movie since Night of the Living Dead is talking about, like, the moral, like, descent.
Maybe man is the real monster.
They do it both times here. It's the same arc, it's the same bullshit, just completely trite passe, like, get it out of here. And there's nothing substantial to it, which makes it all the weirder that the first Purge, the movie, does have some more politically loaded imagery. Like, there's one particular shot, when it's showing, like, in a montage of, like, all the, like, purging and the corrupt, like, mercs and cops and stuff, participating. There's like a bunch of cops killing people in a baseball field, and
just a single guy. It's not even a bunch of people. It's a single man in a baseball field.
I thought there were other bodies.
There might have been, but like the scene itself is only showing a single man.
Okay. Yeah. So that scene feels so out of place.
Like, it's almost a poignant scene.
It's
almost.
It's like the fact that it's like too real is not the problem. The problem is that it's this real ass moment. It's surrounded by this absolutely ridiculous, like, schlock. So, the original Purge was just this, like, crappy little horror movie with some silly people in masks running around. But this one is nuts. It's insane. There's, like, these creepy ladies who tie bombs to
God.
teddy bears and try to blow up her like the kid like brother at the beginning. And then there's the
never show up again. Never show up again.
Never show up again. There's a recurring villain literally pulled out of a Key and Peele sketch named Skeletor. They call
That's not a joke either. His name is Skeletor.
And, like, his name is Skeletor. He goes around, like, preening around, just, like, hamming it up. Like, his actor was clearly having a lot of fun, which is,
Oh,
good
yeah,
for
he
him.
just chewing scenery. It was great.
Yeah. And so, like, there's, and like, the colors, like, all the people who are purging have these garish, like, neon contacts that, like, make their eyes glow. And, it's funny because my girlfriend used to work in a haunted house. She used to be a haunted house actor. And she was telling me that the whole production reminded her very much of that experience of, like, just the lighting, the way it looked, the lines, the dialogue, like, came straight from the script she had to, like, use. And, so that's, whatever, like, haunted house horror movie. But then, like, after a certain point, after Dimitri rolls in, the movie becomes like an 80s muscle boy, like Schwarzenegger Stallone thing, where he's just, like, jumping around, snapping necks like Big Boss, and it's amazing.
Yeah, I want to talk about Dimitri for a minute, because he's played by a guy named Elon Noel, and like, the characters throughout the movie are pretty flat and uninteresting and static and unchanging. And, like, the two other main characters, Naya and Isaiah, are both, like, audience surrogates. And, like, one of them goes out to purge, the other one stays and hides. And so, like, things just kind of happen around them, and it's really boring. Like, they're uninteresting, but they're clearly meant to be audience surrogates for witnessing the horrors of the first purge. But Elon Noel plays Dimitri, and it is great. Despite being, like, a flat character, he manages to just, like, exude charisma. He is a drug lord that spends the entire movie, like, just doing drug lord things, chilling, killing people who are trying to kill him. It's genuinely an interesting subplot. And, like, the idea of watching a drug lord during the purge sounds wild, because, like, there's a whole lot of anything you can do with that. And instead he's relegated to, like, the tertiary plot until he is a god amongst men and just slaughters the world. But even up until that point, I thought he was the most interesting character and just wanted more of him.
And
plus he's really handsome.
He is such a beefcake. Oh my god! Like, when he strips down to, like, the John McClane tank top at the end, I was like, oh my god, JoJo is real.
I have the vapors.
No, so that's all great, and he's great, but, like, it's just completely at odds with, like, these occasional moments of, like, heavy social commentary. Or, like, trying to have this thuddingly heavy social commentary, because it feels like we're sitting here, trying to have a good time, like blowing people up and sending people flying through the air with punches and being a commando, and then...
And being Die Hard.
Yeah, being Die Hard.
Literally.
Then we have, like, spooky jump scare, haunted house, trying to be creepy but not really succeeding at it, and then you have, like, trying to make... heavy-handed political statement. It's a mess. It's a tonal mess. And where does Get Out succeed in combining tones where this one doesn't? Having a competent script written by a good writer.
Yeah. It's the script is really where this whole thing just falls apart, because it's bad, it's boring, it's uninteresting. The things that are interesting are shoved into the background. The things that we want to see, we get to see, like, they might be there for a little while, but then they overstay their welcome and end up just being boring and long. And, like, even this whole scene with the building where he goes full John McClane, it just ends up dragging way too long. There's the whole scene, like, he hits he turns off the power, and, like, we get a white and black strobel effect going on, and it's really good. And, like, in the hands of a competent movie. I would say, wow, there's some kind of cool symbolism going on there, and it works well for, drawing out the white versus the black and everything like that. It's a cool idea that goes on for about 5 minutes longer than it needs to, and also I don't trust this movie to actually be trying to say anything with it, because I can't imagine this movie is smart enough to actually get an idea out of it.
I'm glad you brought that scene up, because if you didn't, I was going to, because Haley and I had the exact same reaction, and that when it first happened, we were like, oh wow, these shots are kind of sick, like this is really cool, and then like it went on for like 10 minutes, and like we were like rubbing our eyes, because we're like, they should put like a seizure warning on this movie.
Exactly. Yeah, it was really fucking good for a little bit there, and then it just wasn't again. Yeah, and
here's what I was wondering. So that guy dressed like the SS officer who like pulls off his mask really dramatically, is he supposed to be somebody?
I was gonna ask you that too, but then I thought about it and realized that we haven't seen. So let me run down my train of thought on this one, because as we were talking about this, I was gonna ask you the same thing. My thought was, should I ask Jackson about it? Because I don't know if he is. Then I thought, nah, Jackson wouldn't know either. He hasn't seen any of the other movies. Then I thought, why would he be in any of the other movies? He dies in this movie, and it's a prequel.
For some reason, I was thinking, like, the creepy liquid snake-looking guy in the first one, who's, like, acting like Loki and stuff. Like, maybe he looked kind of similar, and they were supposed to be related somehow.
What would that mean? What would that be?
Stupid.
Yeah. Yes, it would.
I actually meant to look it up, but I forgot about it until we were talking about it. Yeah,
I forgot most of this movie already.
No, that's sort of the crazy thing, is that I remember.
Other than Elon's rippling pectorals.
And so here's the thing about the Purge. Here's the thing about the Purge as a concept. And this is why I don't know if the first Purge is clever because of this, or if it's just doubling down on what's already stupid. Because the Purge is a stupid concept. Not necessarily a bad concept for a movie, but, like, on its face, in terms of, like, catharsis theory or whatever, it's just obviously bullshit. And the original Purge doesn't seem to realize that. This movie does, because my favorite element was actually that when the Purge got started and, like, the psychologist lady is running the experiment, they don't go out killing like they think they're going to. Everyone just gets together and has a big rager and, like, does a bunch of illegal drugs. And that's exactly what would happen if this were the scenario. Like, people would just fucking party. So, but then, like, that ends up being the plot, is that it's all just a manipulation. We got the mercs being sent in to kill the people, to, like, start inciting the violence. Fine. But it feels like by making this movie, you're acknowledging that getting the ball rolling on the Purge to, like, the point where it was just, like, a socially ingrained thing, like in the first one, would be impossible to get people to accept. So they just, like, roll with it. They double down on it and have the psychologist lady as, like, the stupidest character ever. Like, the stupidest character ever conceived on the page. Because she is, like, genuinely interested in this experiment and, like, wants to see how it's going to turn out. And you think at the beginning that we're supposed to see her as, like, another cold, uncaring, like, upper class, like, manipulating the people. But then at the end of the movie, she gets, like, betrayed by the new frontiersmen or whatever.
New founding fathers of America. I don't know why I know that so well, but I do. It's the NFFA.
Yeah, the NFFA. Yeah, and so then we're supposed to, like, she's kind of the audience POV for a minute, as, like, her pure experiment is betrayed and she's killed, except it was a stupid fucked up experiment in the first place, so why would we ever feel a shred of sympathy for her when she gets gunned down with, like, in her own experiment? It's crazy. Why?
It's absurd. they essentially try and use the child or the dog thing with her, where they're just like, just kill her.
It's except instead of a dog, it's like if they tried to kill Charles Manson for sympathy.
Feel bad for this man who killed hundreds. Yeah, no, it's I've always kind of defended the Purge, and I remember talking to you about this our freshman year of college, and you're like, wow, the Purge is a really fucking stupid concept. And I'm like, yeah, as far as movies go, yeah, but I feel like if you want to get somebody good to write it, get a good topic author behind it or whatnot, I think there could be a really interesting points to be made behind it. There could be more nuance and subtlety to it. I've read a lot of dystopia science fiction in my time, and this is right up at that alley. There is a potential for a good idea in here, and there's some really cool stuff, but they just waste it all, and it becomes whatever it is that we just watched 2 movies of.
You want to know what I think part of the problem is, if I can get hashtag political here for a minute, is that the problem is that we're already living in a nightmare world where children are separated from their parents and put in cages and shit. And it's just as bad as anything that's happening in The Purge, pretty much. Except The Purge is just a slightly more over-the-top version of it. So, we're watching dystopias play out in real time. This is maybe just, my problem with dystopias generally now. Since we're watching it play out in real time, and have been, sliding this way for, quite some time now, something like The Purge, which is just the hyper-inflated funhouse version of that, maybe feels a little hollow. I don't know.
Yeah, it's dystopia novels have kind of gotten less and less fun over the years. Yeah. I will say, and I do have to give this movie credit because I did kind of get that general social anxiety out of it. The themes are dumb and stupid, but watching it, I felt like the echoes of reality and whatnot within it. And I don't want to give credit to the movie for that because it's not really something the movie did as much as kind of just felt like. So it did work in that I was uncomfortable, but not with the movie, more with my own general anxiety with the world.
See, for me, this movie was kind of the inverse Die Hard for me. Because Die Hard was a movie that proved that I could highly enjoy something that politically and thematically I find pretty repulsive. Because Die Hard is borderline fascist, as we discussed. Go listen to the episode.
Fascism notwithstanding.
And it was great. It was a great movie, despite that. And this movie proves that the inverse is true, and that I'm not going to automatically like something just because it kind of reaffirms that worldview that I already have. Because I get the feeling that I'm coming from a similar enough place as the team on this one. They want to get the world get justice and stuff. But make a good movie, please.
I think as we're kind of wrapping up here, I do just want to mention one last thing. And I have to because it hurt me inside so much. This series, 4 movies and a television show. 4 movies and a television show. I just need to reiterate that. This has 4 movies and a television show, and yet has some of the worst special effects I have seen in a movie in a long fucking time. Jackson compared it to Birdemic. In my review, I compared it to a mid-tier YouTube channel. The type that, you have the money for the special effects, but, maybe not enough budget to really make them blend and everything like that. And that's not a dig on mid-tier YouTube channels. You guys are doing the best with what you have. I can't do that shit. No knocking you guys. Knocking this movie entirely. Because, the special effects are absurd. The smoke, there's a bunch of smoke in one scene that is just straight out of Birdemic. It is the smoke coming off the fucking gas stations as the birds dive bomb like planes. There's just there's enormous amounts of blood squibs, which if you're unfamiliar with that, it's like when you get stabbed and a bunch of blood shoots out and whatnot. It's called the blood squib. And like blood squibs aren't that hard to make practical. But apparently they decided on this movie that we're not actually going to do any sort of practical blood squibs. We're going to CGI them and all in post. Which, just a quick aside, I wonder if this movie was supposed to be PG-13. They're like, well, the rest of them are R. Let's make it R, just add in a bunch of blood squibs because it looks terrible. Like, that's the only thing I can think of.
But like the other thing too is that in addition to, the only other thing I can think of is the other like astounding line. I guess just real quick, like, content warning. But, like, this movie has, like, the most flippant sexual assault in a movie that I've ever seen. Where there's the quippy one-liner about being a pussy-grabbing motherfucker. After, like, some...
You get it?
Yeah.
You get it?
It's obviously there because of Trump. But also, like, when you stop and think about it for a second, you're like, oh, like, thinking about what just actually transpired, I'm like, they're being real flip about this. This is kind of bewildering. And so, like, I think just some of the other kind of, like, rapey overtones, I guess, that occasionally happen, like, might have contributed to that so I don't know if it would have just been something in post, but we can only speculate, I guess.
Yeah, it just, like, the blood squibs are just so out of place in this because they're almost all the exact same style. When at one point there's, like, this whole fight happening inside smoke from smoke grenades, and, like, they're not blended to be, like, to look natural within the smoke at all. Like, they're flashes of red that clearly have not been really touched at all. And, like, sure, there's an argument, like, maybe it's stylistic, you know, kind of like a la Sin City or something like that. But no, I've watched this movie. There's no way that was a stylistic choice. Like, if you're reusing the same blood script 5 minutes later and, like, unchanged, it's not a stylistic choice. It's like someone in the special effects department didn't blend it right or something like that. It's absurd. And, like, that's not including the fact that not once but twice, 2 times, the camera gets hit with blood and there's blood on the lens.
You know,
which goes back to the weird thing that the first one kind of looks like The Office and it's shot like a camera crew, and I don't understand.
You know, I was kind of here for the blood splatters on the lens, just because that goes into, like, such overboard schlock territory. Like, the closer we can get to that.
I mean, it's great from, like, a Resident Evil movie standpoint, but that's not what this is trying to be.
That's the problem. Who knows what the fuck this movie was trying to be? But, like, that's exactly what I was gonna mention. Like, the best thing ever was seeing Resident Evil Afterlife in 3D and that stupid quarter gun that she fires and having the quarters fly out at you in 3D was amazing.
Oh, God. I'm really jealous. All right, I want to wrap this up with, like, one final question for you.
All right, lay it on me.
And we've kind of touched on this a little bit, but I want like a definitive answer. Who was this movie for?
Well, all right. So that depends. Are we talking about the prequel or the first one or both?
You know what? Let's go with both, because I want to hear your opinion. Like, just give a quick summary of both of them that you think.
Okay, because the first one's a little easier to answer, only because it's less weird and interesting. Because the first one is clearly just like a cheapo fucking horror movie that they just pumped out to try and get some bucks.
But it's R.
It is R, but, like, it feels it feels low budget enough where, like, they could maybe recoup that, you know. Like, that's why it all takes place in one house and it's all very limited in scope.
Right.
And, like, why it looks like a sitcom, like, you know. So that like, you know, just another movie shat out of the system. The first Purge, see, now the fact that it's a prequel means there's possibly, like, and a TV series possibly means there's, like, some Purge lore going on.
I mean, there is. It's the whole NFFA stuff and things like that.
Yeah, so, like, I guess the
I
obvious...
can't imagine there's anything deeper. But...
No, I mean, so I guess the obvious answer is fans of The Purge, but, like, who are they?
Fans of The Purge, who are they? What do they know? Do they know things? Let's find out.
And... beyond that, I guess just like as a movie, because it is a prequel, which means, I mean, it got me to pay attention. It got me to say, oh, I've never seen a fucking Purge movie. You can just go talk about this on the show. So, but as far as like the actual construction of the movie itself, I mean, I think what it's going for with like being R is maybe trying to like trying to be all socially conscious and stuff, just like trying to hit that millennial demographic, I guess. But also it's an action movie like Stallone throwback, and it's a crime movie, and it's a funhouse horror movie, and it's conspiracy, and it's ape shit.
Well, I have the correct answer for you.
Oh, give it to me.
These movies are all for pirates. You know why?
Why?
Because they're all rated R.
Oh my god. You literally just set it up for that fucking joke. Oh my god. I can't believe I tried to seriously answer that question. I've been made a fool of.
And this is the content that we promised in the beginning. We promised good content.
1 year, folks. We've been at this for 1 whole year.
And we're ending our 1 year anniversary episode on a pirate joke. I've been Sean McKinda. You can yell at me on Twitter for that at Sean_McKinda. You can also yell at me on my website at isortof.com. I write a bunch of reviews and stuff there now for basically every movie I've seen. My review for the first Purge is up. It is a lot of me talking about how good Elon Noel is.
I'm Jackson Keller. You can find me over on Twitter at Jackson J. Keller, where you can reveal my hypocrisy, where I ask whether The Purge is the dumbest movie franchise of all time, and then lay heaps of praise upon stuff like Metal Gear Solid. So, you know, you can go to that cognitive dissonance feed.
As always, we would like to thank Lords of the Highway for the use of our theme song. It is Suicide, alternate take off the album High Octane, Low Expectations. And also thanks to 25 Years Later Site.com. They continue to host our nonsense, and they're great people. You should go check out their website and whatnot. They've got a bunch of really cool writing, TV shows, movies, all that good stuff. Next week, we're going to be talking about Will You Be My Neighbor? A stark comparison from The Purge in every way, shape, and form. We've never really talked about a documentary on the show before. We don't really know how this one's going to shape up, so bear with us. It might be a little bit of an experimental episode.
I, for one, am looking forward to talking about something sweet.
Yeah, it's going to be like a breath of fresh fucking air. I'm so excited for a good movie. Yeah. Bye.
Don't you go into the ground. Don't you go